Typhoon threat remains for the next week with a new tropical depression in the Western Pacific. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical weather bulletin for July 21st. So we have Tropical Storm Don still active in the North Atlantic, and not much has changed with that one as a matter of fact, and a new tropical depression now in the Western Pacific Philippine Sea that looks like it's going to get itself going pretty quickly now as we move on ahead. 30 storms so far this year, code yellow now in effect. Day 51 of Atlantic hurricane season, Don is turning westwards, and we have a 30% area of interest now in the main development region, so chances rising for that little system that could end up trawling close towards the Lesser Antilles and into the Eastern Caribbean. Day 69 in the Eastern Pacific, and we've not marked anything, but there is an area of slight interest in the central part of the basin there. National Hurricane Center way up to 60% on that one, and still some convection from Calvin, I think you can just see there near Hawaii. This tropical depression then has formed a large area around it, mainly on the eastern side, and we've also marked another area, a 10% chance for later on in the 7-day period, mainly next week, that will follow pretty much in its footsteps. Still looking out for possible South China Sea developments as well. North Indian Ocean, we've got no areas of interest marked, but interestingly the models are starting to warm up once again for this possible Bay of Bengal system. Let's check the satellite imagery from the last 24 hours then, and you'll note that you can clearly see that depression in the Western Pacific there, and a few areas around India getting a lot of rainfall in the last 24 hours, and up the coast around Vietnam and in eastern China, a few spots there getting lots of rain as well. Satellite imagery, first of all, of Don, looking pretty good on this satellite imagery. The cloud tops aren't particularly deep, but its structure's looking okay. You might be fooled into calling that an eye, but it isn't. It's just an open center of the storm visible to all of us, and you can see it here on the shortwave infrared, not looking quite as good on that imagery. I'm not sure if that's quite as up to date, but gradual movement towards the west is clearly noted. Here you can see a naked swirl there in the middle of the screen from Invest 95E, the one that National Hurricane Center have marked 60% out over the open waters of the Eastern Pacific. Gradual movement west-northwestwards, a little bit of convection, and some of the makings for rotation there. Here's the Western Pacific, the depression, the circulation buried underneath huge amounts of convection that's blowing up around the center of it. Still unclear really as to whether it is actually a depression status or not, but we've gone and pulled the trigger due to all of that convection, and because the Japanese Meteorological Agency have also gone and declared it a tropical depression. It will be moving towards the northwest and could strengthen quickly. Sea surface temperatures off the coast of Mexico are staying very warm, over 30 degrees Celsius, still that big cliff edge as the storms go further out to sea in those higher latitudes. The Atlantic, there's a few large areas of warmth now, and of course the Gulf of Mexico and the Florida Peninsula area, very warm indeed, well over 30 degrees Celsius, Gulf Stream looking healthy, Caribbean looking okay, and the big bulk of the Atlantic there has enough energy to support multiple tropical cyclones. Western Pacific, large trails of 30 degrees Celsius waters extending from the Philippines through Taiwan and some of the Japanese Ryukyu Islands. Also off the Mariana Trench as well, up towards the north there, some very warm waters. South China Sea, a bit of a gap after the recent Typhoon Talim. Bay of Bengal still has some warm temperatures up very close to the shore of West Bengal, 30 degrees Celsius plus. And in the southwest Indian Ocean, things are obviously quiet here, with temperatures continuing to fade away as we are into the winter period. Mauritius there, 25 degrees Celsius, and off the coast of Australia as well, a similar story, and even the southern tip of Java, Indonesia, also below the 26-degree threshold, as is most of the southern coastline of Fiji and part of Vanuatu. Anomalies look like this, still a cool pool there in the central eastern Pacific, but elsewhere it's generally above average. Atlantic very much so, and some very extreme anomalies off the coast of Atlantic Canada there as well. Small cool pool caused by Don, of course, and the western Pacific is quite close to average, a few little spots there of cool, but generally a little bit above average, especially around Taiwan and the east coast of China. Oceanic heat content looks like this. It's very good right now across the western Caribbean up into the Gulf of Mexico around the Bahamas. Eastern Pacific also looking okay, decent amounts off the coast of Mexico. Western Pacific still has lots of energy right now across large parts of the Philippine Sea, not quite as much as it used to be because we've seen a couple of storms now, but still looking very good. So GFS for the next 5 days, you can see the progress of Don moving northwestwards at short order, then turning north and northeastwards, passing close to Newfoundland. Those sea surface temperature anomalies might help it along a little bit, but it will eventually do what all storms will do there, no matter what the temperatures are, turn post-tropical as it passes by Newfoundland. It's quite close to land, but it doesn't ultimately affect the area there, and then shoots off to form an extratropical cyclone by the looks of things in the North Atlantic. Western Pacific then, looking at this developing typhoon, and there it is. It actually stumbles around, moving southwest for a bit, and then starts to fling itself back towards the north and gets very powerful. Category 4 strength there on the GFS model. ECMWF has it moving still towards the Philippines, so take note of that. And look at the Indian Ocean as well, a little system that tries to develop there. A couple of models have that, but we've not pulled the trigger on calling it a disturbance chance yet, because of how unpredictable it is over there. Interestingly, within 5 days, the GFS isn't calling for any of the other systems to form in the Western Pacific. For a long time it had the South China Sea, but here's the rainfall pattern, and there could still be a disturbance that causes a lot of rain on the western islands of the Philippines. A few spots there getting up towards 16 inches in the next 7 days. That's 400 millimeters. Some of the spots out at sea where this next system will be, extremely high amounts of up to 40 inches, and in Taiwan, toward the Japanese islands, and eastern China eventually, getting to high amounts of rainfall towards 12 inches, that's 300 millimeters. But if the storm does move further south towards the Philippines, of course it will be that area that will get those high amounts of rain. Basically wherever it tracks, guaranteed pretty much 300 millimeters. Longer range, this Atlantic system, very weak, moving through the Lesser Antilles there, and you can just about make it out. It does end up dying off, and we know how often the models underrate these systems when they are small main development region things that move on through. It could become a tropical cyclone. Eastern Pacific, towards the end of the day 5 to 10 period, another system forming there, a small but quite intense one, getting at least a category 2 strength on that run. Here's what happens in the Western Pacific. GFS sends it straight into China now, not far from Shanghai. They'll get tropical storm force winds for a sustained amount of time if this model is correct, and then off towards the Korean Peninsula. A strong landfall as well, at least category 2 strength. Let's watch that again. Moving off towards landfall, maybe even stronger than that. And then potentially this next system, extremely large as you look at it there, moving towards the northwest and becoming another typhoon in that large area of warmth in the ocean right now. That's all the serious stuff done for tonight. You can take a look at the Force 13 merch store by scanning the barcode on the top right there, and you can enjoy all of our items, our still waiting for Hone t-shirts, full season and individual storm animations on request. Well, in the Scilly range, we get to see this hurricane in the Eastern Pacific continuing towards the northwest. In last night's update, I noted how it was moving far out to sea before dying off. Well, this time it's completely different. It does become a remnant low, but eventually makes landfall in California as a remnant low. That's a turn up for the books if I ever saw one. But, and I stress, no storm force winds reach the coast or get anywhere near, so I wouldn't be getting very excited about that, but it could produce some rain. That's if this model has anything going for it there that is long range. What happens to this? Another large typhoon moving through the Western Pacific. It also gets stronger, and then it slams through the northern tip of Taiwan, probably Category 3 landfall, and then into China again. Certainly the makings of an impactful season if this model run is something to go by. Whether both of these typhoons will impact land in that way, it's still too early to tell. We've not even gotten through the first one yet in knowing exactly where it's going to go, never mind that second one. But certainly the Western Pacific looks like it's open for business. You can talk about all of that on our Discord server, discord.gg/force13 for tropical weather and general weather chat with our members from all around the world. All kinds of things going on there. Well, on this day, it was July 21st, 2011, when we had one of the powerful Eastern Pacific storms of that year. It was Hurricane Dora. There it was, with a red ring around that eye there, a decent looking eye, and a strong Category 4 it was, 155 miles per hour. We also had 3 tropical storms active: Brett in the Western Atlantic, Cindy moving towards the Northern Atlantic, and Ma-on, which was dying out just south of Japan. So an active day in 2011, just slightly before my proper tracking days with Force 13. There it is. Back to this year then, the next name in the Atlantic, could it be on the horizon? It's Emily. In the Eastern Pacific, it's another Dora, and we don't have that one just yet. And in the Central Pacific, of course, we are still waiting for Hone. Boy, are we. In the Western Pacific, next name could be arriving soon. It's Doksuri, and in the North Indian Ocean, it will be Tej. It would be a surprise if it did happen in July. Some of the models are starting to produce hope on that off the coast of India. In the Australian region, next up is Jasper. The Southwest Indian Ocean will start off with Alvaro, and in the South Pacific, the next name is Lola. That's all from tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. We'll be back again tomorrow night.